You're listening to Real Talk Texas with local expert Steve Hakes. Now, here's Steve.
Welcome back. This is Steve Hakes here. I'm your host of Real Talk Texas, and today we're talking about the mortgage industry, and we're in my wheelhouse and what I've been doing for the last 14 years and talking about a lot of the changes that have come. I've seen a lot over the last 14 years when it comes to loosening of guidelines. When we used to be able to fog a mirror and give somebody a loan, we used to say, but it was really based on credit score, and it was really designed initially, at least from the underwriter standpoint, for those high net worth people that had a lot of money and a good stable income, and they just didn't want to hassle with all the paperwork. So they had excellent credit, and so they had the ability to go in and just tell you what they made, and based on their credit score, if they put enough money down, they can get a loan. Those were the days when it was a lot easier to do doctor loans. Recently I did a loan for a heart surgeon in Dallas, and he was shocked that we had to have 2 years tax returns, and he was a part owner in a lot of the heart hospital things and cardiac centers and things like that. A lot of doctors that have done well have several entities that they have ownership, more than 25% ownership of. So because they had more than 25% ownership, I had to get tax returns and K-1s from all of those different places. And, back in the days, we call it the good old days, but in a lot of cases it might not have been. But, it made sense to do that type of loan based on their credit score and just looking at what they had. We didn't have to really do all the tax return stuff to see all those different companies and see the ownership and really micro-analyze everything about that loan. But that's the way we have to do them today. A big part of that is the Dodd-Frank rule that came out. We've talked today a little bit about the qualified mortgage rule that is being instituted on January 10th, 2014. So my caution to you listeners is, if you've got a situation where you're self-employed, maybe you're very busy, you haven't refinanced yet, you need to do that now. You need to do it before January 1, because especially on jumbo loans and the ones that are over 417, they're not falling into that temporary, I guess they're calling it like a temporary exemption for this rule for Fannie Mae and for Freddie Mac, the government-sponsored entities. Those guys are getting a short period of time to allow that. But if you've got a jumbo loan, you've got a bank loan. And so, you've got to get that done now. So call our office. You're hearing it on the ads that we play throughout the show, or send me personally a text at the Real Talk Texas show here at 817-925-2546. That's 817-925-2546. And we'll get you taken care of right now, because rates are extremely low. Everybody's predicting that they'll start to creep up over the summer, and especially into the fall, and that the mortgage liquidity of money is going to change over the next few years. So, beware of that. We also wanted to talk more about the Make Sense mortgage and give you some other examples about that, because at Affiliated Bank, we're going to be affected by that rule too in January of 2010, because they're going to limit what I can do with the Make Sense mortgage. January 10th, 2014. Thank you, Paul. 2014 is when that time frame hits. So January 2014, the world's going to change pretty dramatically for mortgage companies, for banks, for local banks, for your private money lenders. And you guys have heard me talk, and I've had people on the show that do house flipping. Well, a lot of those guys that are in the house flipping business right now, they rely on private funds. So they can go in and do a cash deal. They can close very quickly, like within a week, because they're paying somebody else 14% interest for 12 months, and they're paying 4 points to get access to the money. But they just factor that into their cost to do the deal. Once they get it in, they fix it, they flip it. They're not worried about the cost of funds. They're worried about, can I close fast? Can I make this deal happen? Can I build enough margin in it so I can walk away from that home with $15,000, $20,000, $30,000, $40,000 in profit? You see these guys all the time on A&E. People are there, and they are using private funds when they're doing those cash deals, or they have a partner in their business that has a lot of cash that can do the upfront, just give them the money to go do those deals. So what's going to happen is, with these new rules, with the whole requirement of ability to repay, and what that means is, if you're not Fannie Mae, you're not Freddie Mac, you're not FHA, maybe it's some of the resources, if you're a home investor out there that you're using, maybe you're a jumbo borrower, you need to borrow more than $417,000, it's going to affect you because the max DTI on the back end is going to be 43%. And if you're self-employed and you're writing off a lot of things, we're not going to be able to look at it that way, look at it the same. So on the Make Sense Mortgage side of it, we can do a lot of things. I mean, we really look at it. The agencies have guidelines, like, for example, if you filed bankruptcy and it was discharged 3 years ago, and you're going to buy a home which gives you, I believe it's $271,000 is how high you can go on an FHA loan. FHA says 3 years from the date of discharge, we can do a new loan as long as you've had good credit since then, no collections, things like that. So you've reestablished yourself. 3 years is the time frame, so you can do that. Fannie Mae and Freddie Mac, it's 7 years from bankruptcy. And there's been a lot of bankruptcies in North Texas over the trouble we've had over the last 10 years. So some of those people, for example, I did a loan recently for a client that was buying a $150,000 home, and they were 2.5 years out of bankruptcy. And they just didn't want to wait the extra 6 months. They found a perfect house. Everybody's warning them that house prices are going up this summer. So they wanted to close quickly and do this loan. And what we did was we went ahead and just did our own bank loan, the Make Sense Mortgage for them. They put more than 10% down. It is a higher rate because it's a higher risk. But then in a year or two, we're going to refinance them out of that loan. So, and we'll put them in the agency loan, which they fit into at that time. So I've got a lot of tools here at Affiliated Bank. I'd love to use them and help you out. And I'm very knowledgeable. I am part of the people that review these loans and decide, because it's basically it's the old rule: he who has the gold makes the rules. So our committee, we look at it and say, does this make sense? I look at it personally and say, would I lend this person my money? So if you've been turned down by another lender and it just doesn't make sense to you because you've reestablished yourself, you've got money, you've got reserves after closing, you've got more than 10% to put down, preferably 20% to put down, but something's keeping you from getting inside that agency box and getting into that home you want to pick up your cell phone right now. And I want you to put in this number, 817-925-2546. That's 817-925-2546. Send me a text, and I'll put our people to work, and I'll go to work for you personally to make sure that we get this done, and I'll let you know if it makes sense or not. So we'll give you a quick answer. We won't drag you out. We'll try to make a decision very quickly for you as soon as you give us all the information. So we only have a few more minutes left, and I've been dragging out the whole Carnival Cruise thing, and a lot of people have asked me to talk about this on the air, and a lot of people have been interested in that. So I just want to kind of fill you in on what happened with us. So I got notice from the bank that we were going to do this 2013 business planning trip for all the board members of the bank and the executives of the bank and their spouses. And so, they put us on a cruise. It was just supposed to be leave Galveston on Thursday night, would be back Monday morning. So no cell phones is a great place to go, get away from all the distractions and really think about the business and do some planning. And the bank's actually been doing that for several years on that same ship, I think. So we had a great first couple days, went to Cozumel, came back. And here's the one thing, a lot of people have done spots on what happened on that cruise. And most of it was geared around the inconveniences that we had. But I want to explain to you, I've been married to my wife almost to be 31 years next month. And I've never seen her act this way, and I understand totally why. At 5 o'clock in the morning, it's pitch black on Sunday morning. And I get awoken to an announcement. It said, there's a situation in the engine room, A team to certain deck. So I woke up and I said, Dana, I smell smoke. And the first day they put you in the muster stations and they say, talking about cigarette smoke and saying, don't flick them off the ship because the worst thing that can happen is a fire on the ship. So immediately her mind goes there. So we were on the second deck. Everybody in the bank, including the chairman of the board, did not have a balcony. We were on the second floor with just a window. So I stuck my head out the door and looked down the hall. And normally I could see like 150 rooms, and I could only see 50 rooms, and the rest was smoke. So Dana saw it too. and, we're very faithful people. And so immediately Dana turned sheet white. She dropped to her knees and she prayed out loud. I've never heard her pray out loud in my life in 31 years. She prayed out loud. She said, "Please, Lord, let us live. And if you do, whatever else you bring us will be okay with me." So I said, "Oh, well, we're going to be fine. We're going to be fine. I'm being the man." So we go up to the muster deck, and we see all these people in life jackets. I guess on the other side, on the odd side, they had knocked on the door and said, get out of your room, go to the muster deck, get your life jackets. So Dana started crying. I went downstairs, got the life jackets. I slipped both life jackets in my arm, and just then the engine stops and everything goes pitch black. I couldn't see my hand in front of my face. And I said, "Oh, wow, this is really for real." So I went into survival mode. And so I found a bag. I threw suntan lotion. I put in sunglasses. I put in hats because I'm thinking we're going to be in these little dinghies. We're in the middle of the Gulf. We're going to be out there for a week or so. I don't know how long it's going to take. So I get all that pulled together, and then I hear the boat creak. Kind of remind me of the Titanic where you hear like the creaking, So then I'm thinking, oh, crap, what if they start locking down the boat? Maybe we're sinking. I don't know. So I run up the 2 flights of stairs. I see Dana there, and at that point she had crumbled. And fortunately, some kind gentleman had stopped, and he was holding her, and she was totally frightened. And she was getting ready to send a text to our kids as to, advice. But that's the one thing that I would say is that no one really talked about the trauma that at least Dana and I'm sure other people on that boat went through that really were involved and saw the smoke and all that stuff. It was very frightening. I will say Carnival did a great job. Everything they could do, they were under the gun as well. But Dana never complained. The rest of the cruise, as much as the inconvenience, you didn't hear a complaint from the Hakes family. So for that, I love my wife. I love you, Dana, and hope that our next cruise we will have a much better trip. Thanks for listening.